public reminder that there's members of the public. This is an open meeting and it will be recorded. AMAT's committee meetings are open to the public and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items are presented by staff or consultant. After the committee discusses the business item, the public is then invited to formally comment. Could I get a motion of approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Second?
Second.
All right. All the members.
Who was the second? I'm sorry. Who was the second?
Ricky.
Oh, okay, got it. Thanks.
Agenda item number 4 is a approval of the previous meeting's minutes. Inside the meeting announcement, you should be able to see the meeting minutes. They were attached along with the agenda. Could I get a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, who was that?
It's Rich.
Rick, sorry, I don't recognize
I
you.
read them as well. I'll second that. This is Doug.
Okay, thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. Going on to business items, we're going to be hearing a presentation about the Alaska Seward Highway intersection project, basically the left going into Alyeska, by R&M Consulting. It's real interesting, some of the stuff that they're trying to do there. So the person from R&M that will be taking the lead, is that you, Ms. Lee?
Hi, Joe. Yes, this is Juan Lee with R&M Consulting, Consultants, actually, excuse me. I want to thank you, Joe, for inviting us, and also John Cecil, who I've been coordinating with. So we do have Mark Frudiger here, and he's going to give a quick overview of our 11-12 alternatives and hopefully have time for some questions and some feedback from everyone here at the Freight Advisory Committee. So with that, Mark, would you mind sharing your screen and getting us going?
Mr. Chair, this is Craig. Can I make a quick statement or announcement before we roll into the presentation?
Mr. Lyons, go ahead.
Yeah. Just a reminder to the Freight Advisory Committee that the AMAT's boundaries actually end at Potter Marsh. So we are not allowed to do our planning work south of Potter Marsh. And obviously this project is located down south of Potter Marsh. So that just means that the AMAT staff isn't able to do work related to research, et cetera, on this topic. It certainly does not mean in any way, shape, or form that you folks are not allowed to discuss it. And this is an excellent forum for you, obviously you extremely interested parties and people who are in the industry to get this information. So we're very happy to provide this forum here. It's just that AMAT staff is not able to use our federal planning dollars to do any research, et cetera, related to this topic. So just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Thank you very much. With that, you guys kick it off, take over the screens, and looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yeah, let me share my screen here. Before I get started, can everybody hear me okay and see me okay?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, and you can see the slides that are up on screen right now that I'm sharing?
Yes.
Yep, you can. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, let me start out by echoing what Juan said and then thanking you for asking us to present the Seward Highway Alyeska Highway Intersection Improvement Project to you. I'm gonna go through this. Juan said pretty quick. Hopefully I can wrap it up in 15 minutes or so, but I'll try to do my best to move things along. Let me start out by introducing the project team. Not everybody on this list is here today, but some are. So starting out at the top, we got the Alaska Department of Transportation, represented by Christina Huber, the project manager, David Post, the Surface Transportation Planning Manager, and Sean Gardner, the Anchorage Area Planner. And then R&M Consultants, that's the firm that I work for. My name is Mark Frudiger. I'm the lead civil engineer for this project. Tim Greer, my boss, he's the project manager. He's on the line today, I believe. And of course, we have Juan Lee and then Taryn Olson. And then part of our team, we have 2 other firms that are helping us out with this project. As sub-consultants, we have Keeney Engineering, led by Jeannie Bowie, and then Michael Baker International, led by Derek Christensen. So that's the project team. Quick overview. Obviously, the description of the project makes it pretty obvious where we're at, but just in case there's any doubts, we're at the intersection of the Alyeska Highway and Seward Highway near Girdwood. The kind of the dashed green boundary that you see around on this figure here is our study area. You know, we try to capture an area that's large enough to cover the largest possible alternative that we could come up with. And then the kind of the pink highlighting or the purple highlighting are the extents of the both Alyeska Highway and Seward Highway that we intend to that are part of this project. Real basic. This project is intended to improve the safety, capacity, and operations at the Seward Highway Alyeska Highway intersection. That's the basic objective here. And our goal right now is to go through and select the preferred alternative out of a range of alternatives, and I'll get to those in a minute. And then come out of that effort with a preferred alternative and move that forward into the environmental process, or what we call the NEPA document. Okay. All right. We've developed 11 conceptual alternatives, each of which will be evaluated based on criteria that I'll show you later. 11 alternatives is quite a large number. We're trying to reduce that down to about 5 so that we can be more efficient when we get into the more detailed analysis. So these 11 conceptual alternatives I'm going to show you today have not been evaluated in great detail. That's why, like I said, we need to reduce them down to something more manageable, about 5 or so. Let me dive right into the alternatives. Conceptual alternative number 1 that's up on screen right now is not very exciting. It's a pretty blank slide, right? It's what we call the no-build alternative. It's something that we have to satisfy the National Environmental Policy Act requirements, and it will be used to compare the preferred alternative against. So, you always have the option of doing nothing, and you have to be able to compare that against the preferred or action alternative. Obviously, this means that the intersection remains as is, and the identified deficiencies are expected to exacerbate over time. So that's alternative number 1, the no build. Can everybody see it okay? Am I going too fast, too slow, or the transition's working out? Any feedback? Everything okay?
Good to go.
All right, cool. Thank you. Alternative number 2, signalized existing intersection. This is not much fancier than the previous alternative, but it does add a traffic signal at the intersection of Alyeska Highway and Seward Highway. Other than that, there will be no other improvements. So that's indicated by the symbol right here. Alternative number 3 is the improved signalized intersection. It's starting to get a bit fancier here. It would realign Alyeska Highway to give us both a perpendicular intersection at Seward Highway, as well as more offset to the Girdwood Station Mall. It would add some channelization. It could be coupled with some improvements to the ingress-egress to the commercial development, the Girdwood Station Mall. One thing worth pointing out, and you'll see it in some of the subsequent alternatives, is that there are building blocks that make up these alternatives that could be removed or added as we see fit. Right now, I'm just showing you one possible combination. Like I said, this could be, could be combined with other improvements to the local road system that aren't necessarily shown on this alternative. But the highlight is the intersection of the 2 highways. Okay, that's alternative number 3. Alternative number 4 is called a continuous flow intersection, also known as a displaced left turn. It's similar to the previous alternative, but the Seward Highway to Alyeska Highway left turn is accomplished in 2 steps, which reduces and spreads out the number of conflicts. At each stage, the conflict is only one direction. The previous alternative, if you can visualize it, let me go back. Somebody who wants to take a left turn, let's say somebody's coming down Alyeska Highway, southbound on Alyeska Highway towards the Seward Highway, and they want to take a left to go towards Seward or the Kenai Peninsula. That also happens to be our most concerning traffic movement at this intersection. Taking a left, you have to first cross Anchorage-bound traffic, and then you have to cross Seward-bound traffic. So there's 2 conflicts in one location. What the continuous flow intersection attempts to do is to spread out those conflicts by first merging the driver who wants to come from Anchorage and go towards Girdwood. First merges them into a turn lane, and then they get to a light. And then when that light turns green, the opposing traffic from the Seward side is stopped, and then it can shift over to the opposite side, to the left of the oncoming traffic. And then there's another signal to eventually make the left-hand turn. So it's the same movements, but it gets accomplished in two separate phases. We understand this is an intersection that is not present in Alaska today, so we thought it would be appropriate to show you a video. It's just so you can understand, better than I can explain it, how such an intersection would work. So let me go ahead and bring over YouTube here. And I can't guarantee you if the sound's going to come through. I guess we'll hope for the best. But this is a video by the North Carolina DOT, intended to show you if the how this type of intersection works. So let me play this, and then please let me know if you can hear the audio or not.
No audio.
Okay, no audio. All right, let me unshare real quick, and then I think there's a checkbox when I share that I probably forgot to push, so apologize for that. Let me see here. Include computer audio. Here we go. All right, let me try that again. Apologies for that. All right, let me know if you can hear it.
Continuous flow intersection, sometimes referred to as a displaced
Yes.
left intersection, is an innovative design to improve intersection safety and mobility by redirecting some or all left turns at a major signalized intersection. This improves efficiency by allowing all left turns and through movements on one or multiple approaches to occur at the same time. To navigate a continuous flow intersection, vehicles on the main street or side street are allowed to drive through the intersection the same as any conventional intersection. Main Street left turning traffic will cross opposing through lanes in advance of the main intersection, and the traffic signal can be timed on the through movements, and displaced left turns can continuously flow or occur simultaneously, since left turning traffic will be on the outside of the through movements. This allows for moving more Main Street traffic through the intersection, helping alleviate congestion. Signs, pavement markings, and the intersection layout are designed to assist motorists safely through the intersection. Right turn movements from side streets occur on the outside of the displaced Main Street left turning traffic. Bicycles and pedestrians navigate continuous flow intersections by using pedestrian signals and pavement markings across the main intersection. Continuous flow intersections have been installed in many locations across the United States and have been proven to help improve safety and operations of congested signalized intersections. Left turning traffic has also been relocated to reduce conflict points. Traffic will
The video short because the last part of it doesn't really apply to our situation here. So also note that obviously that was that video, some of the footage that's shown on there is in a location which appears to get a lot more traffic than we're looking at here. But I think the important point is that it shows you how this sort of unfamiliar intersection would operate. All right, so that was alternative number 4. All right. Let me go to alternative number 5. We call it the continuous green intersection concept. This is the same as alternative number 3, which was the improved signal. But the major difference is that the signal at Alyeska Seward Highway only stops Anchorage bound and left turning Alyeska traffic. Seward bound has a constant green. So coming from Anchorage to Seward, it would be a continuous green light that you never have to stop. The light is really intended for traffic coming from the peninsula towards Anchorage or towards Girdwood to stop. And if you're coming from Girdwood and you want to take a left onto Seward Highway, if the light's green, you would take a left, and then there would be this acceleration lane. There's a detail up here in the upper left corner. There would be this acceleration lane that would allow you to get up to speed and then merge into the flow of traffic headed towards the Kenai. That's alternative number 5. All right, so now it gets big. Alternative number 6, we call it the separated highway or kind of phase 1 of a future grade separation. This would separate the Seward Highway in anticipation of a future divided highway with a grade separation. So you could think of this similar to what occurred at C Street in O'Malley. For those of you who have been in Anchorage long enough, when I came here in the early 2000s, C Street in O'Malley looked a bit like this, and then not too many years later, the grade separation was completed with O'Malley or Minnesota going over C Street. So this would be kind of like the first phase of that that kind of alternative. It would require a bridge over Glacier Creek, but some of the major benefits it would bring to the table, including, of course, dividing the highway, is it would allow for more queuing space, or vehicles being able to queue to take a left, which is an issue today where they queue in front of the mall and up Alaska Highway. That would occur, partially on this leg right here, as well as if you're coming from Girdwood or the mall and you want to go towards the Kenai, you would cross the conflicts would be spread out across two movements instead of one. And you can see here we're indicating a stop sign or a signal. That's some of that detailed analysis that we haven't conducted yet. Like I said, we have too many alternatives to do that effectively right now. So assuming this concept makes it to the next round, we would take a closer look at what type of traffic control is warranted at these various intersections. Okay, number 7 is the Trumpet interchange. All left turns are grade separated and elevated across the Seward Highway. So you can see there's a bridge across the Seward Highway. So if you're coming from Anchorage and you want to go to Girdwood, you would exit the Seward Highway. Kind of see a exploded view up here. You'd exit the Seward Highway and then you would ramp up and then over the Seward Highway and go that way. Same thing if you're coming from Girdwood, want to go to the Kenai Peninsula, you would come down Alyeska, go across the Seward Highway on the bridge, and then you would go down the Trumpet, hence the word Trumpet, and then accelerate and go towards the Kenai Peninsula. This particular alternative, or this combination, is coupled with a roundabout at the intersection of Gold Avenue and Alyeska Highway. Again, I consider this to be part of a building block that's kind of modular. And, this could be coupled with a signal or a stop-controlled intersection, depending on what the detailed traffic analysis shows. Okay, alternative number 8 is a large roundabout on the Seward Highway, with approaches on the Seward Highway intended to slow oncoming traffic. I'm sure you know that roundabouts operate. One of the major benefits of roundabouts is that they slow traffic down. I'd say to a maximum of 30 miles an hour going around the roundabout. So in a situation like this, if a roundabout were to be built on a highway with 55 to 65 mile an hour speeds approaching it, you'd have to design the approaches such that the drivers would slow down naturally, using geometry to that 30 mile an hour target. The free right from Alyeska headed towards Anchorage would be maintained as it is today. And one possible alternative or sort of modification to this alternative would be to perhaps have a bypass for the Kenai-bound traffic to essentially bypass around the roundabout. That's not something we're showing here, but again, that's one of those details that would be looked at if this one were to advance to the next round. Okay, we're getting closer to the end, folks. Alternative 9 is the tight diamond. All the left turns, just like the Trumpet, all the left turns would be separate, grade separate, and elevated across the Seward Highway. One of the major differences between this and the Trumpet is that the on and off ramps would be right up against the Seward Highway, hence the terminology tight diamond. And this would require the construction of fairly significant retaining walls, as is indicated by the red lines on the drawing. So you can imagine coming from Anchorage, Girdwood bound, you would exit the highway, you'd ramp up, and then take a left, and then go up Alyeska Highway. And conversely, if you're coming from Girdwood, wanted to head to Seward, go down, you're above the Seward Highway, you take a left, and then you would accelerate down the on-ramp and merge into the flow of traffic Kenai bound. But like I said, this would require significant retaining walls on both sides of the on and off ramps. Okay, now it may get a little confusing. Alternative 10, we're calling it a frontage road concept. It's not quite the correct term for this because the focal point is more on how we're dealing with the Seward Highway traffic and how we're handling the left turns to and from Girdwood. So let me zoom into this. So let's first take a look at this picture up here in the upper left. So what we're trying to do here with the traffic on and off the Seward Highway is we recognize, like I said earlier, that one of the major conflicts at this intersection are the left turns, as they are at most intersections. So what we're doing here is we're using a number of one-way roads, one-way streets, both Girdwood bound this way and then Seward Highway bound that way, so that the left turns off the Seward Highway do not coincide with the left turns onto the Seward Highway. So let's say you're coming from Anchorage and you want to go to Girdwood, you would take a left as you would today at Alyeska and head up Alyeska. However, if you're coming from Girdwood and you want to head towards the Kenai Peninsula, you would come down Alyeska Highway. This would be a one-way, so do not enter. So you would take a left at this intersection, a right at this intersection, and then you would stop at this location here, or up in this you would be right here, and then you would take a left and go about your way towards the Kenai Peninsula. So the left in is physically separated from the left out. Like I said, we call this the frontage road concept because it also shows one idea of how to take Toadstool and some of the local traffic near Old Girdwood and funnel everything to the Alyeska Highway intersections. So that's kind of what this concept shows here with the frontage road here, and then the frontage road right here turning in a cul-de-sac. Okay, almost done. One more. This is the Diamond Interchange, alternative number 11. This is essentially phase 2 of alternative 6. Let me go back to alternative 6. This is alternative 6 right here. This will be phase 1 with everything at grade. And then alternative 11 is essentially the full build out of that full Diamond Interchange. The Seward Highway would be fully elevated, complete access control, and there would be on and off ramps, and could be coupled with some frontage road concepts, as mentioned earlier. So that's alternative number 11. Here is just a blow up of what we showed earlier for one possible way to reconfigure the local road system around the Girdwood Station Mall and some of the ingress, egress, and circulation around the mall. Obviously, we all know that that Girdwood Station Mall attracts a lot of traffic, especially during the peak months. So we developed a concept on how to better handle the traffic in and out of that location, and also keep the number of access points to the Seward Highway either to none or to a minimum, and try to funnel everything to Alyeska Highway so that the access is primarily at Alyeska Highway and Seward Highway, rather than at a number of driveways spread up and down the Seward Highway. Okay, so those are the alternatives. One of the next the step that lies ahead of us is, now that we have these alternatives, is we got to evaluate them to try to sort of grade them and distill them down to the preferred alternative. Well, to do that, we came up with a number of evaluation criteria that are shown on screen right now. Everything from turning delay to construction phasing to maintenance costs, viewshed impacts, and then minimal. Say for turning delay, minimal is green, so it's positive, all the way to significant red or orange, I guess, which is not so good. So we're going to go through a process where we evaluate each of these alternatives and then try to narrow it down to about 5, which will then go into the more detailed analysis. All right, second to last slide. This is the schedule we're looking at right now. So obviously today, May 12th, we're here talking to you folks. Then we have another meeting coming up at the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, probably in July. And then kind of our big milestone that lies ahead of us is the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're going to present to them the preferred alternative tentatively at the beginning of October. So between now and October, we're going to narrow down the the 11 alternatives down to, like I said, about 5, and then we're going to take a closer look at those. And before we go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we will have a preferred alternative that we can recommend. Okay, I think that's it. I again want to thank you for the opportunity to allow us to present today, and certainly we're happy to take answer questions or try to answer questions and hear your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We've got some seasoned professionals on the line that some of them have had a chance to review this prior to today. I would like to turn this over to Jimmy Doyle if you want to just talk in general about doubles and roundabouts, and some of the ideas, and also one of the things that we talked about was the speed in that area that might you have a chance to address. Are you in a position to talk about that, Jimmy, or do you want me to?
You bet, Joe. I would like to, and thank you to the committee. Thanks to all for the presentation. It's really interesting. Learned some more that didn't understand when I first saw the options. I have a couple of general questions besides the roundabout issue. If 6 builds into 11, why would you go with 6 first and not just get the whole thing done 11? I imagine the total cost. I'm just asking general questions. You said number 11 option comes from number 6. Why wouldn't you just do 11 first?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jim. This project is somewhat unique as far as projects that I'm familiar with are concerned, is that we're actually looking at a 50-year horizon. Typically, the projects I get involved in have a 20-year horizon. We're trying to plan for the 20-year traffic. In this case, we're looking as far as 50 years. So the idea with alternative 6 being phase 1 of alternative 11 being the full build out, is it's an alternative that could be built for the 20-year anticipated traffic to work well, but it will be set up to go to the full build out if it were necessary for the 50-year traffic projections. So it's just the idea of, probably isn't enough funding to build something like that, or nor is it needed early on. But you could start down that road by building, something that works for today, but then you have the option of expanding it in the future if it's necessary.
Okay. In regards to the comment about the roundabout, we're used to having some roundabouts in Anchorage, but none of them are at highway speeds. All the roundabouts we do in Anchorage, you're not doing 55, you're doing 45 or less, quite a bit less, for instance, on the Dowling one. So having a roundabout, quite honestly, on a main thoroughfare 55, even if you're going to try and slow down the traffic, I don't think is good. Number one, just to slow down the speed of the vehicles, and number two, drivers are getting used to going through roundabouts with doubles, and this the peninsula has a lot of doubles traffic, 2 trailers hooked together. You're stretched out 120 feet long. Even though drivers are getting used to going through roundabouts, it's not on a main highway where you're going to have so many other pieces of traffic going at such high traffic speeds. Even 35 is faster than you want to go through a roundabout with a set of doubles. Singles, same thing. It's of all the choices, that was by far my worst, except for doing nothing. Obviously, like I told Joe, if you're going to have a road job, your first thing is to improve safety. Without a doubt, that's there's nothing else that trumps safety when you're trying to improve a road. If you're not going to improve the safety on the road, then you're wasting your money doing whatever you're doing. So the roundabout definitely fell to the bottom right away.
Yep, thank you for that comment. You're not the first person to say that.
Okay, thank you. Did I miss? I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there questions from committee members or comments? Just for clarification, we'll get a copy of the presentation so you guys can take a better look at it. Whenever we are looking at projects, Mark and Juan, it's you look at the height, because you don't know in the future what you're going to have to try to get through that corridor, and so we're always looking at the height, and we're always looking at the bridges. So I like some of the alternatives is Richard, do you have any comments? You guys run a lot of stuff up and down that road. Is there anything that flags to you? Other comments that we had were just, eliminating other options of getting out of that gas station. Only having one was one of the big safety concerns that our committee came up with. But sorry to put you on the spot, Richard. Do you have any comments?
No, I'm completely in agreement with Jimmy. The idea of trying to run a set of doubles from highway speed down to slow enough to get through it with all the traffic going through there sounds miserable to me. No, I mean, not even just getting into what's going to happen if you have issues slowing something with weight or ice or anything in that intersection. I just, that one drops to the bottom for me as well.
Hey, Joe, this is John. So I'm following the chat, and Doug Thompson had a couple of questions. I think maybe the first one got answered about traffic lights being part of all of the alternatives. And then the second part of his question was, are all of the alternatives within a budgeted amount that they know of?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now, the maybe Christina Huber can jump in here, but right now there's some state funding available to work on the design of this project. I don't think there is any federal money available at the moment. So, and I don't even know, Christina, maybe help me out here. What sort of budget we're working with here in the future?
We do have some state money, and that's our budget for design and right-of-way acquisition if we move forward with the project. At this time, we have no construction funding identified. When we have a preferred alternative, we will be seeing how that prioritizes to get into the state transportation improvement plan. So at this time, we don't have a construction budget at all. We'll basically use our estimated cost for our preferred alternative and request that much money to be put in the STIP.
The one question that I had when I first viewed these projects, and Wanya had made a comment that the community of Girdwood, didn't want to look out at the water and see a gigantic mound of dirt with roads on it, so they didn't want to block their view of the inlet. But from what I can see, it almost seems like the Trumpet or one of those other things that allow continuous flow would be the safest option. Is Girdwood being what have you heard from Girdwood as their preferred, the residents of their preferred options to this date?
Hey, Joe. Yeah, thank you for the comment. So we did have the open house in April with Girdwood residents, and we've actually since followed up with a couple of Girdwood Board of Supervisor members as well as some residents. And we also met with the Girdwood Fire and Emergency Response crew yesterday, actually, and went over the alternatives with them and addressed some of the concerns that they had in their written response. Of course, we've been talking to Scott Thomas with the Regional Traffic and Safety Engineer with DOT as well. And I don't know if you noticed, Joe, I know you've seen our criteria for how we're going to run all the alternatives through. And one of them is obviously view sheds, but we have learned since then that projects, and especially the Trumpet alternative, can actually improve view sheds and not necessarily diminish them. So that we added that as a criteria after talking to Scott Thomas. So it's not in every case that an alternative, even one that's above grade, will impact negatively view sheds. So we are going to take an objective view once we have all these alternatives down to maybe 5 that are manageable through analysis. Safety is number 1, and we heard that from Girdwood Fire and Rescue as well. At this point, we haven't weighted any of the criteria one over the other for prioritization. And we don't have cost or budget in there at this moment. Also to address Doug's question about estimated cost, and if all these alternatives are within that rough order of magnitude cost that we have for the project. So lots of unknowns. I hope that answers your question, but our next steps are, to get this kind of feedback from industry groups as well, like the Freight Advisory Committee and your individual membership partners and companies, that we can refine it down to 5 manageable ones, where we would look at all the issues that you have brought up that we can do an objective evaluation on.
Well, thank you very much for your guys' time. And committee members, if you have additional comments, you can feel free to, I understand we can't utilize staff on this thing, but feel free to give me a call here at ATA and I can relay them to our RM consultants if you have any new ideas or any other comments as you learn more about this.
Hey, I had
Joe?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I had actually one more question about it. One of the routes that listed through one of the options, the one that has the side route that bypasses, has consideration for whether when there's a crash or some sort of emergency at that intersection. Could you use that side route to route traffic around where you're not just putting the highway at a standstill?
Richard, are you talking about this alternative here, the one that I'm
Yeah.
sharing on screen?
No, actually, I was thinking of one earlier. There's one where you're using you're keeping the original route on the highway. Go back one or two. Sorry, I forgot to write the right number down. It was one of the going. Sorry, that one. So
Okay.
at this point, are you completely eliminating that straight route path through the original Seward Highway?
No, that would be the divided portion of the highway Anchorage bound. So that would be for traffic. Anchorage bound would stay on what is today the Seward Highway, and Kenai bound traffic would divert away and go this way.
The only reason I'm asking is it seems like a number of the alternatives, if you wind up with a crash at that intersection, you're back to me trying to find somebody a hotel room that can't do anything for 5-6 hours. So would you be able to route traffic through that so that we'll keep some kind of flow?
I can't answer that question exactly, Richard, but my thoughts would be that this would give some options for traffic control. If there's a crash at the intersection, perhaps the 2 lanes headed Kenai bound would be available for 2-way traffic or flagger controlled 1-way traffic or something like that. It seems to me like this would provide more options in case of a crash rather than just keeping the highway where it is today.
Yeah. The reason I ask is, like I said, I have a number of times where as everybody knows, if there's a crash somewhere on the highway where it's only 2-way, like your driver's stuck for hours. This being an intersection where there's a large, even if we reduce the amount of traffic here, it's still high frequency intersection. If something happens here, we can still allow our guys to get through. That'd be my only. I'm just wondering if that's part of the consideration for it.
Yeah, and when we talked with Girdwood Fire yesterday, they commented specifically on this intersection alternative, and they were discussing some concept of how they would respond to, say, a crash at the existing Glacier Creek Bridge. Meaning they would essentially have to come from the fire station, take a left and probably go against traffic to get to this site right here. So I think some of that input's valuable too.
Thanks.
And Joe, can I ask a question? Just following up on the roundabout comments that I heard.
Yes, Chair recognizes Mark. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I heard that the roundabout, obviously there were some comments not in favor of it due to having to slow down and stuff. How do you folks feel about the signals? Because I mean, a signal, if it's red, you're coming to a complete stop. So I would imagine some of the concerns you have slowing down for a roundabout, you have the same concerns for a signal?
I'm going to defer to Jimmy on this one.
Yeah, and the actual view that you have up right now is twice as worse. You got 2 signals. You got one going both directions. I was going to say that if I was looking for safety, the 3 items for safety that I would be looking for is for a company that puts traffic through there on a regular basis is, first of all, you want the best you can is to have north and southbound traffic unimpeded. And the way you have it, this one right here, is you're impeded both ways. The second thing that I would want to do is make sure that all gas station traffic that is exiting always has a controlled way of getting out of the station. The way it is now, of course, it's uncontrolled from 2 or 3 different exits, which is really unsafe. And then the third thing to think about is anybody that's going left turn to go southbound on the Seward Highway from the Girdwood intersection needs to be able to enter the traffic flow safely a light is going to impede it. I think one of the other ones had a stop sign where you had that square in between the two highways. There's a huge amount of traffic that's going to come out of that gas station in the summertime with a left turn. And you're talking about stopping traffic both ways a number of times to let those people out, using this as an example of an option, which I don't think is very safe.
Okay. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Joe, you had two other individuals that had their hands raised.
And I should know how to do teams a little bit better, but I'll be quiet. And is anybody who had their hands raised, please speak up.
I'm one of them.
Ms. Hubert, go ahead.
Yes. So again, I wanted to go back to Richard and Jimmy and hearing clearly that the roundabout was your least favorite, then it went to the bottom of your list. Did anything go to the top of your list, or maybe one or two that at this point you would gravitate toward?
Richard, do you want to go first?
I did like the way that the Trumpet style fort seemed to allow for a more continuous flow of traffic. I'm not as big of a fan as the traffic lights either. The only thing I had about that one was I like the fact that there was an alternate lane passing through that location if something happened to make it so you couldn't get through, so that everything doesn't grind to a stop. But anything that allows that continuous flow of traffic, I'm definitely for. My only concern, which I think you already brought up, would be if we're doing anything that goes above the highway, the height.
Yeah, I agree. The height thing, if we weren't concerned about the height, and I don't know how high you could build it, you're going to have stuff going through there that's going to be 16 feet tall, possibly. If you can go above that height, then you're good with that overpass. I like thinking about the future, but I wasn't thinking 50 years out. Thank you, Mark. I was thinking that's a long ways out, so I don't know where we're going to be then, but obviously you want to go out 10, 15 years because we're going to spend a lot of money on this project. So the ones that I like, the overpass, and then also anything that talked about being able to extend traffic flow, out in the future ways. And I apologize, I don't remember which exact numbers, but I think they were on the, I think number 9 says the diamond retaining walls were okay, but does not access the divided highway, I think was my note there. So I'd say 9, I think 7. How's that?
Yep, that sounds good. And the future expandability is a criteria that we're going to look at when we do our evaluation. So we recognize, like I mentioned earlier, that we may not be able to afford the full build out today, but we don't want to limit ourselves, for future expansion either. So it's definitely something we're going to look at.
I think I had 6, 7, and 9, 11, 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. I still see Jimmy and Christina's hands up.
Oh, I'll take it down.
I don't know how to take it down, Joe.
I didn't know how to put it up to begin with.
So you click on the same one that you clicked on to put it up.
We got it. Okay.
Wonderful. Are there any other comments from committee members on this? Would this be a point in time where I would ask if the public has any comments?
Sure.
Public, do you have any comment on this?
None from John.
All right. Well, Mark and Juan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. We can email the presentation to John or Christine with AMATs if you want to share that with the rest of the committee. The alternatives are also on the project website.
Okay.
Yeah, Juan, please go ahead and email me with that, and I'll distribute it so that all the committee members get a copy.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, John.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to throw up the agenda so that everyone can see that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Let's see. So can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are on business item part C next, and it's the expected actions of the Freight Advisory Committee. On this front, I wanted to bring up the document that John emailed out to everybody just about half an hour before the meeting. It is titled, could you pull that item up, John? The upcoming state and AMATS road and highway construction projects?
Yes, let me just give me a quick second here.
And I had questions for AMAT staff on this one. Are the criteria and the parameters with AMATs? You guys speak with DOT, and you guys kind of have a list of criteria that moves things forward and back on this. Could you guys talk a little bit about how you guys come to a conclusion on which ones are coming out of the STIP and which ones are coming out of AMATs?
Yeah, this is Craig. So with our criteria, what we do is we, it starts with staff. Staff does the research, figures out their suggestions for the criteria that are used to score and rank projects. And then after that, the agency folks get a chance to look at it. The folks are engineers both at the Muni and the city, and the planners in both locations to give their thoughts. Then the next step is for the committees, the technical and policy committee, to release it for a public review stage. So we're looking to try and get those released next month. And then they'll go out for a 30-day public review for everyone to get a chance at it. And then once we get the comments back, staff then feeds those to the committees again to get them to approve them with if we have any suggested changes based on those comments. And then after that, we start the nomination process of getting projects ranked for the inclusion in the TIP. The key thing is that the STIP, those projects are usually on the national highway system. Those are the projects and the funding that the state controls. The AMATS allocation is a smaller allocation usually, and that's what those TIP criteria are for. So I imagine some of those criteria might be similar, but they're obviously not exactly alike. So does that answer that question for you, Joe?
Yeah, thank you. I see a couple of DOT representatives that are in attendance, not withstanding the commercial motor vehicle enforcement member of the committee, but James Starzak, on the DOT front interfacing with AMATS, or is there any hiccups between the two? Is there anything that we can do to improve from just our small freight advisory committee referral, just kind of the 30,000 foot view of how this is going?
This is James Starzik, the AMATS transportation planner for DOTPF. In regards to the TIP criteria, we have members of DOT on both the Transportation Advisory Committee and on the Policy Committee. We chair the Policy Committee. When these are released to the committees or put into a work session, as we did last week, there's a lot of coordination with DOT and AMAT staff, and preparing these criteria. We have plenty of feedback, the reason that we were looking to engage with you folks today really was more to just kind of give you the heads up, because as Craig was saying, these should be going to public comment over the summertime. Your next meeting is in August 11th. So it really kind of felt like it was important for DOT to make sure that the Freight Advisory Committee was aware of the criteria being developed and the public comment period coming up, so that you guys have an opportunity to, as a group, kind of put your freight focus on this, and think and be able to help us with criteria that help support important freight routes congestion issues. You know, those are things that are very relevant to DOT operations. And I think that's reflected in a number of our projects. The project list that was provided by Mr. Post kind of illustrates what kind of the span of projects here in the Anchorage Bowl area, and really the italicized projects are kind of the ones that we see as having an impact on freight mobility congestion issues. And you know, there's not a whole lot of them. And so, you know, DOT does have a mandate to maintain the infrastructure for commerce. And so when we look at these criteria, we think about, well, how can we show that priority through the development of the criteria? And that's when we're like, well, the Freight Advisory Committee would certainly be very helpful in figuring out, well, how can we create criteria to help maintain that goal and reflect that importance in our planning process.
David Post, would you have your hand raised? Do you want to round out some DOT comments, and then we'll go move slightly forward?
Yeah, thank you much. Mostly we just brought this forward because we wanted to make sure that the Freight Advisory Committee was utilized as an advisory committee with these TIP criteria. Just briefly looking at the TIP criteria, out of possible 58 points, really there's a maximum of 3 that would be given to freight considerations, only as many as 2 possibly kind of focusing on congestion. You know, that's in comparison to say 26 points that are focused on, you know, items such described as livability. We do have a concern that maybe there's a focus that's maybe not as representative of the concerns of the Freight Advisory Committee here. So I do think that it's really important for the Freight Advisory Committee to go ahead and weigh in on this. And one of the things that I want to go ahead and mention is that in the past, for example, AMATS has been funding the C Street extension down south to Minnesota that was recently opened from essentially Diamond in Minnesota. Another AMATS funded project, at least in part, was the Dowling Road extension west to go ahead and make that connection cross town. The old Seward Highway projects, those were all AMATS funded projects, and those all had significant dramatic effects on transportation here. So we're concerned that we are kind of you know, focusing on some things that are really not kind of addressing some of the regional mobility needs as much. The other thing is ignoring for the time being AMATS funded projects. We're kind of seeing a similar type of an issue at the STIP level here right now. We've been having a challenging time trying to go ahead and convince some of our brethren down in Juneau to go ahead and break out more money within the Anchorage Bowl, within AMATS, you know, that has approximately 40% of the population. to go ahead and fund some additional highway projects. And I mention that here because I think one of the next things on your agenda is discussion of the state long-range transportation plan or freight plan. And I know that you guys are serving on the statewide freight plan advisory committee. But we do in Central Region AFO have a concern that maybe on the statewide basis, there's not really as much of a focus on where the population, traffic, and congestion is. And so if you look at those NHS STIP projects there, we will have completed the Seward Highway O'Malley to Diamond reconstruction this calendar year. It's not slated to receive funds anytime in the foreseeable future. The STIP only goes out until 2023. And the Seward Highway and Dowling Road Interchange project, that will be funded, we anticipate in this year. But other than those projects, we don't really have much that's on the shelf that's coming up. And this is really the first time in about my 20 plus years of working, at DOT and working within the Anchorage area specifically, where I've seen that kind of lack of depth here, because it takes a huge amount of time to go ahead and develop these projects. So I guess in summation, I'm concerned about it both at the state and at the AMATS level. You guys happen to be involved in both of these, and so we're looking for you guys to go ahead and be able to go ahead and weigh in on both of those things, specifically here, as it pertains to AMATS with the AMATS tip criteria. And I guess I would end maybe with just a question to Craig as to whether or not the Freight Advisory Committee is going to be given an opportunity to go ahead and comment, or if it's going to be a comment period that runs between when they actually meet.
Well, I'll answer that question. I feel like I have giant semi marks across my back right now from that Freightliner that just drove over me. Thank you, David. Of course, all of our advisory committees will be given an ample opportunity to comment, and they always are. We have never left any of our advisory committees out from being given the opportunity. Keep in mind that our quarterly meetings are just that. They are set up quarterly because we know that certainly the people on this committee have day jobs and they're very busy with those. And so that's why we try to make sure that we only try to take some of their time quarterly. But we do, and we are more than happy to have separate meetings, special meetings. It's a heck of a lot easier now that we're doing these things virtually. So we are more than happy to do that during the comment period. We can do it. We could do it next week if you want to. The criteria are they're underway. There is, I will say this, that we did kind of a sample ranking and scoring using the old criteria and the new criteria, and the projects settled out just about the same with both sets of criteria. So do not fear that these new criteria are going to just fund nothing but non-motorized enhancements and trails and things of that nature. They will continue to do the things that that AMATS, which of course is a joint state and local entity, thinks are the priorities. The state has their allocation for the national highway system, and that is their priority. The AMATS can fund anything down to any public right of way, including a local alley. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do that because it takes so darn long with the federal funds because of the NEPA process. But they can fund all those different creatures here. And most of the time, the funds that are allocated to AMATS go to state-owned facilities because the municipality has the ability to bond for some of their projects. And so that's just kind of how that works usually. There certainly are some municipal facilities that are in the AMATS program, like Fireweed and Spenard. But most of the time they go to larger facilities. But I am happy to, well, heck, I meet with anybody who asks me. I've given presentations and things to the, what's that?
I didn't mean to, you're an open book. Every single time I've called you, I mean, you return the call instantly. One of the things I wanted to talk about as far as if you could scroll down just a little bit further on under other projects. There was they just awarded the contract as far as the Ocean Dock Road study. It's one thing that if we're looking for projects, that study in that C Street to Ocean Dock Road, I'm looking forward to getting to be able to make comments to the engineering firm that's going to be starting to identify the different problems that are going on down on Ocean Dock Road. So to learn more about the criteria and to make sure that, we're not dropping the ball as a freight committee as far as looking at projects and reading things. I'm trying to keep my head on the horizon, but it looks like, the short term, we need to be looking at that as well. So I'm looking forward to getting that, learning about that study. Speaking with the DOT person on that front, they just awarded the thing. So I'm looking forward to, during our next committee, having those people, those engineers in that design firm here to talk about the things.
Yeah, and just as information, the status of the criteria right now is that we have sent it around to the internal agency folks because we had our work session with just the technical and policy committee. At that point, it was just an internal staff document. And so it's gone around to the agency folks now, so we can get the experts on both sides at the DOT and the MOA to weigh in on it before we launch it for the public review. And so they're not ready for prime time. They are being chewed at internally right now, or chewed on internally right now. But as soon as the policy committee agrees to release them in whatever form that might be, then I'm more than happy to schedule a special meeting of the Freight Advisory Committee for you folks to get a chance to kick them around a little bit. But they're not available yet. So
okay,
that's the status.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep my head on the horizon, and
yeah, I get it.
I'm really looking forward, like I said, for that engineering thing. Before I move on to item number 6, are there any committee members that have an idea of something that needs to be put on for our next quarterly meeting or anything of that nature? I'll definitely get with the professionals from AMATS and with DOT and look to see if they've got any projects hiding underneath the shelf or something that we can start advocating for as far as getting our freight through the Anchorage Bowl. Then moving on to informational reports, I wanted to make the committee members aware of the Alaska Statewide Long Range Transportation Plan. There is a freight advisory aspect of it. There was one meeting of the long range plan where the engineering firm kind of outlined how they were going to identify projects and how, there's going to be no specific project identified by the long range plan. It's a lot of policy documents. But what I want to make you guys aware of, that we are going to have to be paying attention to it for, it's going to be about a 2-year process, 18-month process, but we are going to have to pay attention to it at every step along the way, just to make sure that freight is represented in that long range plan. When they talk about long range plan, these things, everywhere from boats to 4-wheeler movements out in the village and things of that nature. So there's going to be a moment in time where we might have to do all hands on deck as far as comments and things of that nature, just to make sure that, when they're putting hash marks and the different tally things on who made a comment for what, that we got to put up a pretty big number on that thing. That way, when they say they took, public comment, there's plenty of public comment for us. Stephen Rebuffo is on the Freight Advisory Committee for the Statewide Long Range Transportation Plans. Not to put you on the spot, Stephen, but did you have any comments about the Long Range Transportation Plan after the last meeting?
No, I don't. I appreciate the fact that there's a lot of time and effort that goes into these things, and the fact that the port was even given an opportunity to weigh in. Usually, that's a luxury that we tend not to get. I'm anxious to continue with the process to see where it finally winds up. But it was a good group of people and committed to the cause. So I'm anxious to see where it goes.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a very nebulous thing right now, but as this thing gets framed in, we're just going to try to be part of it in every step of the way. Moving on to committee comments. Anybody got, want to put something in?
Joe,
Yes.
this is John. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to put on the committee's radar some key dates coming up this summer related to the long range transportation plan, and I can include it in an email to everyone. But there's a virtual public outreach event scheduled for May 17th through June 7th. There is a virtual hosted meeting on June 2nd. And there's virtual presentations to existing committees, May 17th through June 7th. That may require a special meeting. I'll have to follow up on that. The next meeting for that group is June 3rd. And the next statewide technical advisory committee meeting is June 9th. And then financial technical memo is should be ready by August 4th. So I'll put those dates in for everyone so they're aware of them. They can plug them into their calendars. But I just want to make sure everyone was aware of those.
Thank you very much, John. I guess does any member of the public have anything to weigh in on before we kind of go on about our day? I see somebody's hand is raised, the EOC.
Sorry, Joe, that's me. I'm trying to get rid of my hand.
Okay. Well, good meeting, and we look forward to learning more about criteria, and really looking forward to the next meeting where we'll be able to hear from the folks that are going to start planning in the roads down there by the Port of Anchorage. So if there's any other comments, feel free to make them now. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe.